Hello, I'm Kate Williams and welcome to Media Week. Ahead on the program, editorial jobs set to go at Fairfax Media as the company looks to slash overheads. And just who are Generation Z and how are media companies responding to their models? EY's global media and entertainment leader John Nendick joins us later in the program. Our co-host today, James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, is in the studio to talk us through those stories and more. But first, the outdoor media space continuing to go from strength to strength, with oOh!media posting double-digit earnings growth in the first half, with digital revenues on the rise. For more on the outlook for the sector and the company, we're joined by the Chief Executive, Brendan Cook. Brendan, thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here.
James and I were just talking earlier. It really is the sector to be in at the moment. Many others would be envious.
I'm sure they are, but and you're right, and I think one of the keys to that really is that not only is technology favouring things that we can now do to deliver audiences, but our audiences aren't being disrupted or fragmented, and that really is giving us the opportunity to not only be the last mass media, but also very targeted with that as well. And so those combinations that are rather unique.
We saw your recent results. I think they came out in February, I think. Now, that was for your first 12 months since you were listed?
Yep.
Yep.
That was a great result for us. Obviously, we delivered 2 consecutive forecast updates from our first forecast, from the prospectus forecast. So that was a pleasing result. The sector certainly the sector actually performed stronger than we really did think it would do, and that's great, and it's continuing to do so.
Can that growth continue, do you think?
I think it is, and I think the key for us is we look at around the world in comparative markets. Out of home has about 7.5% of the media pie, and we're only running at about 5.6%. And I think that's not to do with product or data and or quality of people. It was to do with the strength of traditional media in a country of this size. And I think that fracturing of there, as well as the changes within online audiences and ad blocking, etc., we really are seeing clients, when they want to reach big audiences, need to look at something like out of home to deliver those audiences for them.
You're pretty much a bellwether, I guess, for the sector. I mean, you and APN control a lot of it. How much of the ad dollars overall that your trade group publishes the results of, how much of that roughly do you control, do you think?
The OMA is about somewhere between 90 and 93%, we think, of the total dollars.
Yeah, and how much of that would be media, do you reckon?
We're about 33%, 34%.
So about a third. So yeah, so your results are pretty much going to reflect what's happening in the sector.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty sizable market share.
Absolutely.
How fierce is competition at the moment when it's such a lucrative sector?
Oh, look, outdoor advertising has always been a competitive industry. I think the only difference today is that you've got most of the players are listed, so it's more public. The reality is we have to compete in a vibrant media space. We're still, as I said, 5.6 of the media pie, so we still are competing for the overall media dollar, not just competing with ourselves. And I think in reality at the moment we're more competing for the overall media dollar than ourselves.
Is it going to be all about digital? I mean, is eventually not all signs going to be digital screens, do you think? Or is there still going to be a place for the more traditional?
Of course there will be a place for the traditionally. The single focus message has always been a powerful medium and has always worked for clients. I liken it that if you think about it, TV and radio are similar but different, newspapers and magazines similar but different, PC online, mobile online similar but different. Out of home had the classic or the static inventory. Now we've got digital, we've got multiple ways we can communicate to people. But more importantly, we're also delivering new opportunities to create content and contextual relevance in a number of environments, and that's changing the way that we can interact with customers.
Do you have better performing divisions geographically or by division?
Not at the moment. I think it's very widespread. I mean, we're on obviously across most areas of the out-of-home industry, in the sense that we're in the road industry, we're also in the walk-by industry, shopping centres and airports, and we've also got the emerging areas like place office towers, cafes and universities, etc. So we're in all areas of the business. I think the 3 bigger areas, retail, flight, the road, airport and shopping centre environments, are certainly growing stronger than the emerging areas, but they will come into their own as they develop as products and product offerings to the clients.
I know you like to build a very big, the staff, you like to have the staff all motivated, and you spend a lot of time working with your team, but I guess you're not always high-fiving each other about how good things are. Where's the growth for you guys, do you think? Where could you do better? Where could you be getting more revenue from?
I think that we still haven't seen the advertisers move to buying audiences rather than buying products. That has to come. That's how they buy online. That's how they really will buy. And I think we're seeing that by investing in significant research called Quantum at the moment, a world first. That's allowing us now to be able to give in the future a consistent approach, whether we're in Karratha, Cairns or a metropolitan market, whether we're on a road, a bus shelter or even a shopping centre. We will have the data that allows us to look at all the markets and compare what we should be doing and how an advertiser should be moving forward.
And is that research sort of exclusive to you guys?
It is exclusive to us. Quantum have done deals with certain businesses, MCN into the TV industry, Facebook, etc. We've done a lot of work. We've spent 12 months researching and working with them to understand how we would apply the data. And what it gives is a greater strength around a client offering. For example, at the moment, if it was dog foods, you could only sort of say certain people, but now we'll actually know where the best dog food sales are and how you can approach the dog food audience by location. And that geography decision really changes the way we can talk to advertisers.
Brendan Cook, that's pretty incredible information. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Brendan joining us from O Media. Just for everyone at home, we are getting some breaking news. You can see it on the bottom of your screen. Fairfax staff have voted to go on strike until Monday. Now, this comes in response to news that Fairfax is cutting 120 editorial jobs from newsrooms in Sydney and Melbourne. This will include cost cutting at the SMH, The Age and the Australian Financial Review. And the Media and Arts Alliance, Media Entertainment and Arts Alliance estimates that this equates to about 1/4 of Fairfax's editorial workforce. We'll go to James Manning up for this. James, first of all, the 120 editorial job cuts, is that a surprise, the extent
Well, it is a bit.
Cuts?
I mean, everybody knows Fairfax have been on a long-term drive to get their costs down, but we've talked on the show before, we thought they might have turned a corner where they could maybe, start to reinvest a little bit more in their products. Look, it's a very sad day for anybody who works in the media, anybody who consumes any of the Fairfax products. This has got to have a kickback effect on those, whether you read the websites, whether you consume any of the print products, the magazines still. So, yeah, it's not great.
So just to reaffirm for everyone at home, Fairfax staff look like they have voted to go on strike until Monday. These will be staff from the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age and the Australian Financial Review who are facing job cuts to the tune of 120 positions in newsrooms in Sydney and Melbourne. We do need to take a break here on the program, but we will continue to monitor that news for you. Also, when we come back, just who are the post-millennial generation and do media companies understand how to target them? EY's global media and entertainment leader John Nendick joins us next.
Ladbrokes' new odds boost is available to every punter on any race every day. Go, you good thing. Make already great odds even better. Get odds boost and bet better with Ladbrokes.
Washing Max with back pain? I don't think so. But I discovered Voltaren Emel Gel. Unlike heat rubs, it's a powerful anti-inflammatory medicine. It relieves pain, treats inflammation and gets you moving sooner. Voltaren, the joy of movement.
Can you guess what's scaring Kemmer? She's just 8 years old and she's terrified of marriage. Girls like Kemmer are forced to marry men 3-4 times their age. It's illegal. It's wrong. But it happens. They suffer terrible abuse, pregnant when they're just children, too young to cope. Will you sponsor a child like Kemmer with World Vision to help free them from this terrible fear?
Knowledge applied is power. Incredible things are created with the right knowledge. Knowledge also breeds foresight, giving strength to manage risk and make better decisions. When you choose to trade Forex with Go Markets, you'll gain access to our foresight and expert market analysis. Analysis that could help you identify potential financial risks and wait for the right opportunities. Go Markets, your first choice for Forex.
They'll never find us here. Then this holiday could last forever. Gregory.
With over 40,000 holiday rentals, visit stays.com.au.
Wix makes it easy for me to create a beautiful website. I can add a gorgeous gallery, drag and drop everything into place, and show off my products exactly how I like them. Create your stunning website today at Wix.com.
Whether you're plan to paint, plant, tidy, trim, mow or blow, Mitre 10's got some awesome ideas for autumn. Like this Rockwell petrol chainsaw, just $129. Lion 3-piece ratchet set, $25. Fire up this Weber Q Barbie for only $3.95. Waterproof Eveready Dolphin torch, just $12. And this powder-coated storage cabinet, just $149. That's mighty helpful, Mitre 10.
Ladbrokes' new odds boost is available to every punter on any race, every day. Go you good thing. Make already great odds even better. Get odds boost and bet better with Ladbrokes.
Sunday on Carvelis, issues that matter round the nation. Debates that dig deep into big election questions. Education Minister Simon Birmingham is my political guest. And the future of the health system. Carvelis, Sky News Live.
Welcome back. Our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Mediaweek, is here and joining me up on the desk. And we're also joined by John Nendick, who's the Global Media and Entertainment Leader at EY. He's in Australia for the launch of a report which looks into how industry leaders are responding to Generation Z, the post-millennial generation. John, welcome, and welcome to Australia as well.
Thanks for having me.
Now, these are sometimes called the I generation as well, Gen Z, aren't they? They're a different mix to what we've seen previously.
They absolutely are. We call them Gen Z, but others call them the C for the connected generation, the I for the always on. But these are the generation who were born after 1997, and so for them, they are digital natives. You know, all they know is online all the time, and they have different consumption interests as well as different characteristics as compared to the millennials that preceded them. One example we often cite that sort of illustrates this is that more than a half of these Generation Z group would rather interact socially with their friends or peers online or digitally than physically or in person. And so that just creates... And so the EY view here is with this new generation, with media going from a business to business to a direct to consumer, and the consumer being not the same consumer you would have seen, it's a different playing field.
How is traditional media doing it, trying to reach these people who seem to be avoiding a lot of the older, you know, if you like the analogue, the hard copy things? How are they dealing? So some of them are throwing a lot of money at it. Some aren't doing much.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting if you look at television content consumption overall. Our experience is that overall content consumption is not actually declining. What's changing is when that content is consumed. And so some of the top programs, say in the US today, will have less than 50% of their viewership on the initial linear night, but that is the primary monetization model. And so what I think we'll see here is a move to measure the viewership in a way different than what we have seen, and then a monetization that will follow that move in measurement. So you can move from just the first night measure to 3 nights after, to 7 nights after, to 30 days after. And at the end of the day, as long as consumers are consuming, there should be a market for that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because we were wondering what it would do to profit margins, obviously. If they're not all watching at the same time, how do companies, or have you started to see an impact there?
Well, I think there are different profit margins at different times. I think we're in a time when aggregate consumption is still strong, but monetization isn't fitting that at the present time. So sometimes the monetization model will go in some peaks and valleys. I do think once that monetization measurement gets aligned, then we'll see the margin tick. I think the key thing for us, though, it's not like consumers are not consuming. The categories of live sports, news and entertainment, that there is more demand for that than we've seen in the past. The question is, how is that coming through the distribution system? How is it being measured? And how is it being monetized?
And is it much of an age thing? I mean, Kate's a little bit younger than me, but when she gets to my age, will her media consumption change, or are these people going to wash right through the system and nothing's ever going to be the same again?
That's a very good question, and people are spending a lot of time thinking about this, because in the US now we're moving from a big pay TV bundle, and people are talking about, are you cord cutting, are you cord shaving, are you going to a skinny bundle, do you want a bit of this and a bit of that?
I love all these terms.
Sounded like a of coffee at first when I first heard that. But the question is, you can look at these individual slices and say, these seem like cheap, these are what I want. But then you have to re-aggregate them and say, how much does, if this gives me entertainment, do I get news? So I need some news. What about live sports? There's no live sports. Do I get my broadband connection? No, that comes separately. And so I think you have to look at it. And sometimes, certainly for the children of mine, they're not necessarily paying for that broadband connection. So they may think some of these other offerings are quite cheap, but that's because they're not fully bearing the cost.
That's a good point. There have been suggestions this week around marketers perhaps overestimating the value of social media like Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Do you think that that's the case?
I do think that this new generation is definitely a generation that is online all the time, and social media, is definitely a destination for that. So the difference, though, between maybe this generation and the former generation, this is not a one-screen only generation. So, in my generation, if you were watching the television, that's the only thing you would be doing. Today, we're seeing multiple screens. The best example was in this year in the US in the Super Bowl. It was one of the top 3 Super Bowls of all time watched on linear television, but in addition to that, there were 4 million people who were streaming it on their phone or separate device. Now, my guess is a lot of those would have been this Generation Z, and a lot of them were not only streaming it or only watching it; they would be multitasking or multi-consuming.
And do you think are we going to see lots of new things keep evolving? And are you putting forward your best guesses? Because you don't really know, do you, I guess? Is that the expertise you offer? Well-researched best guess of what might happen?
We would say it's an analysis-supported, research-supported. Some of it has some short-term views and some of it has some long-term views. So let me give you under the art of the possible, which is not a tomorrow, but it will be a someday. When the next generation of children come to time for them to learn to drive, it may be that they will not be allowed to drive. Because at that point there will be no cars with drivers. Safety will say all cars are driverless. In the US, that would mean that there would be over $20 billion of hours of time that would free up for alternative. It could be for news, for sports, for reading, for sleeping.
News for Netflix, right?
It could be, but we always say in media entertainment there's only 24 hours a day and people need to sleep for a certain amount of time, so we do have a finite amount of bandwidth for consumption. But technology, IoT, a driverless car, not suggesting, again, it's coming immediately, can create an opportunity for more consumption and more demand.
All right, John Nendick, thank you so much for joining us on the program. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
John joins us from EY Global Media and Entertainment. He is their leader, in fact. Well, media reform is a key topic of discussion again this week, with Communications Minister Senator Mitch Fifield addressing the National Press Club. This is what he had to say about a change experienced in the sector.
1987, hard for some to believe, including myself, was a long time ago. Yet much of the law that governs media dates back to that year. Everyone ultimately catches up with the fact that change is required. Change is remorseless. Our media laws are a relic of a bygone era. They were designed for an environment that no longer exists. And just like the cathode ray tubes that we've all thrown on the nature strip in years gone by, so too must these media laws be dispensed with.
All right, we're going to go back to James Manning now, joining me up here on the desk with the latest news, and we'll start off with Fairfax once again. There's a stop work meeting that has been announced in response to mass job cuts, James.
Yeah, look, as I alluded to before, look, really disappointing. You'd hope that Fairfax might have been able, turned the corner and done really all the hard work in pruning. You've got to feel for the staff. The staff who've been through a lot of this now. It would be getting pretty hard and wouldn't be a pleasant workplace to be in, you'd think, at the moment. Should they, yeah, look, it's just hard to know, they say, but I don't think it'll be just the staff that'll go too. They're talking about things like cutting travel budgets and freelance budgets for boarding stories. So I think the products are really going to reflect some of these changes. It's interesting, this week they've started to pull apart the business. They used to merge all their business units between like the Age, the Sydney Morning Herald and the AFR, but they've started to pull that apart, which I thought was a good move to, let the journalists be more specific for specific audiences. But then something like this happens and just thinks, wow.
Exactly. And just to reiterate, 120 jobs going at Fairfax, and staff in response have voted to stop work until Monday. All right, we've got more executive departures at 9 as well this week.
Yeah, look, Peter Wilshire's gone. He's a guest person we've had on the show a couple of times. The Chief Revenue Officer, Michael Stevenson's stepped up to take over that role. So, yeah, look, there's been lots of people through the exit door at that 9 corporate level, if you like, and speculation there still could be a few more changes to come as Hugh Marks really gets his team in place, I guess, to take the company forward as he sees it.
Yeah, and Foxtel has put its price up, and that has caused a few angry subscribers.
Yeah, just $1. Only went up $1. You could argue, why put it up $1? Maybe it should have been a little bit bigger. Maybe it shouldn't have moved at all. But I guess they're very conscious of, the monetary constraints of their customers. They like to get people on multiple packages. You can just get on for $25. It's probably going to be $26 now. They like them to buy more. So, they just want to maybe take it up in small increments.
And John Lehman appointed editor of The Australian, but he'll come in under Paul Whittaker.
Yeah, under Paul Whittaker. Paul Whittaker took over at the end of last year. Clive Matheson's just gone off for a job in the public sector, so he'll be a public servant. There's quite a few people doing that at the moment. So, yeah, a good move for John Lehman.
All right, I think we're going to take a look through the television ratings now, and some pretty big shows have ended prior to Easter, so we're going to take a look at how they performed as well.
Yeah, look, My Kitchen Rule's not going anywhere. That's going to stick around for a few weeks. Some of the shows that did end were sort of shows that really haven't made it onto this chart, although Here Come the Habibs turned up for the first couple of weeks when it was on there. That did very well, dropped away a little bit. That'll be back later this year.
Yeah, we'll turn on to the second screen now. And yeah, you've got the Doc Martin ABC, 9 News Sunday, 7, so a lot of news coming in.
Our guest, John from EY, said, live news is very crucial to these business models now.
All right, let's take a look at the sub-TV topics now, the top 10.
Again, look, all NRL over the weekend. I think that filled out the whole top 5. Yeah, so 4 games, and then Fox Sports sort of magazine program covering the code on Saturday. The AFL still another week away, so we'll see this chart sort of populated by both those codes for the rest of the 6 months.
And now we'll take a look at the non-sport options, and it's headed up here by Selling Houses Australia on the Lifestyle Channel.
Yeah, look, that always does really well. Look, movies is still a big draw. Yep. Mad Max, which of course cleaned up at the Oscars, getting a big audience for one of the Foxtel movie channels there when it premiered.
And staying on television, there's been some pretty big shows, as I said, that have come to an end. I just wondered how they had been faring.
Yeah, look, Habib's, I mentioned, look, I'm a Celebrity did pretty well again for 10 this year, gets them on the radar in that really competitive first quarter. And look, the 3 shows that went head-to-head, My Kitchen Rules, Australia's Got Talent and Celebrity. Celebrity did pretty well in that sort of punch-up there. That should be back next year, I would imagine.
And Nickelodeon has held its big awards show.
Yeah, look, very interesting. Some diverse awards there. Rebel Wilson got one, so did Scott Cam. So, all ages catered for there. Scott Cam, I don't know whether they called him the Boring Fart Award or Boring Old Fart Award. But,
what a lovely
So it's an endearing, so a lot of kids are obviously aware of The Block on Channel 9 and Renault Rumble, which Scott also hosts and is starting up again next week.
And Optus has signed the English Premier League deal with SBS in return for some cash and World Cup matches.
Interesting deal. We heard about Optus spending up big on sports rights. They're continuing to spend up big. They're paying SBS for some of their access to their World Cup games. I think there's 64 games in a World Cup. SBS will keep 25 of those, but Optus will have them all. So they'll have a lot of those games exclusively. In return, they're also giving SBS some of the EPL games. So there'll be one EPL game a week live on the SBS platform.
And finally, James, we heard a little earlier on the program from Mitch Fifield, the Communications Minister. We've got a bit of an update on all of this. I just wondered if we could take back a look at the regional media space regarding mergers, affiliations, deals or sales as these changes make their way through.
Some analysis this week that they don't really see a lot of M&A activity maybe happening because of these rules getting changed, which everyone was predicting. There just doesn't seem to be much genuine interest from the metro free-to-air networks in buying their affiliated partners. I think part of that might be nobody wanting to look too eager before an auction. You just want to stand back and say, I'm not really interested, and then you might start bidding. So I think we could see something.
All right, we are going to bring you some images now of the Fairfax strike. This is the walkout currently occurring in response to plans to cut 120 jobs. You can see Mark Burrows from Nine. This is his picture that we have on the screen right now. Fairfax editorial staff, as I mentioned, in Sydney and Melbourne, they are striking, and they will stay on strike until Monday in response to news of these 120 job cuts. And the cuts will be made and redundancies will be made as cost-cutting measures at the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age and the Australian Financial Review. And the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance believes the cuts amount to about 1/4 of the editorial workforce, so they are pretty significant. A big thank you to James Manning, who joined me up here on the desk today. Really appreciate your time. That's all we have time for this week. Thanks for joining us.